Along with crickets and wood roaches, superworms make a tasty snack for your dragons. This family of pygmies are lined up in expectation of their wormy treat. Superworms should not be confused with mealworms, which are less nutritious, more fatty, and cannot be fed as frequently. Culturing your own superworms is easy if you have a warm place to keep them. First, obtain some adult worms from a supplier. These can then be encouraged to pupate by isolating them in individual containers and placing them in a dark place. They should curl up and pupate within 2 weeks. Pupa should then be placed in a container with unprocessed raw bran. Once they turn into beetles, they will need moisture. The easiest solution is to add halved apples or oranges to the container. Within a month, you should see the tiny superworms beginning to appear. Replace the fruit and bran when you notice they have been eaten. Your superworms will reach maturity at about 4 or 5 months of age, but can be fed off at any size. And now we've dealt with some aspects of feeding, let's move on to enclosures. The easiest solution to providing a home for your bearded dragon is to buy a ready-made cage. These days, most decent pet stores stock reptile products, and some even specialize in them. It's in everyone's best interest to make sure that your pet gets the proper care, so never be afraid to ask for advice. For a baby bearded dragon, a 2-foot cage is adequate. You will also need a substrate such as sand, 2 lights, one to provide ultraviolet and one to provide heat. A water bowl and a food bowl are also very handy. Once you have decided where to place your cage, preferably near a power point, you can begin to set it up. Some nice printed backdrops are available, and if you choose to use one of these, it should be attached first. Then add the substrate. A fine desert sand looks attractive and will not cause problems if your dragon accidentally eats some. Then add your synthetic rock feature, plastic plants, and a basking perch. Lastly, install the light bulbs and make sure they're working. Set the thermostat to 30 degrees Celsius, then you are ready to add your dragon. The key to keeping your bearded dragon happy, or any reptile for that matter, is to never forget that it needs an external heat source. However, it also needs a place to escape the heat. If your cage provides a temperature gradient between 20 and 30 degrees, your pet can decide where it wants to be. A happy bearded dragon will make a responsive and curious pet. It will enjoy interacting with you, but it will be just as happy to be left alone when you don't have the time. It will not bite or scratch, and doesn't have feathers or hairs to give you allergies. It is in fact the perfect reptile pet. The road test results for this episode produced the following scores. For the eastern or coastal bearded dragon, at $50 to $100, this is a very affordable pet, so on price I gave it a score of 9. Eastern bearded dragons are not as commonly kept as centrals and pygmies, and therefore not as readily available, a score of 6 for availability. Maintenance. Eastern beardies are relatively simple to maintain, but in the long term they do not seem to thrive. They can be highly strung, sometimes lose weight for no apparent reason, and are prone to suffer calcium deficiencies. In addition, females do not breed consistently, so a score of 4 here. Garaging. They can be kept in a simple enclosure, but it should be at least 3 foot wide for adults, a score of 6 here. Fuel. Juveniles require live food, but some adults can be conditioned to take pellets and frozen crickets, a score of 5. Being a common and familiar lizard to many Australians, the eastern beardie does not pack a high wow factor, so a score of 3, giving a total score of 33. For the central or inland bearded dragon, on price, at $50 to $100, this is also a very affordable pet, a score of 9. Central bearded dragons are prolific and frequently bred, so on availability I gave them a score of 8. Central beardies are the easiest dragon species to maintain. If you follow a few simple rules, you can expect them to live over 10 years in captivity, a score of 7. On garaging, I scored them with a 6 because adults require at least a 3-foot enclosure to be happy. Fuel. Hatchlings require live food, but can be weaned onto frozen crickets and pellets by the age of 6 months. However, providing a fresh supply of veggies does require some time and effort, a score of 6. Some of the yellow and red morphs being developed are impressive, so a wow factor score of 5, giving an overall score of 41. For the pygmy or black soil dragon, also very affordable at between $50 and $100 each, depending on size, so a score of 9 on price. Pygmy bearded dragons are almost as commonly kept as centrals, so a score of 7 for availability. Pygmy dragons are as easy as central dragons to maintain, so a score of 7. On garaging, I scored them with a 7, which is slightly above centrals, as their smaller size means you can get away with a smaller cage. On fuel, hatchling pygmies are smaller than the other two, but with appropriate sized baby crickets, they will grow fast and can be weaned onto frozen crickets and pellets. Almost as easy as the central beady, and doesn't require as many veggies, a score of 5 for fuel. Wow factor. Exciting new morphs such as the hypomelanistic specimen featured in this episode have promised to produce some interesting colours, so a score of 4 here, giving a total score of 39. For reptile licensing requirements, contact your local National Parks office.
For care sheets on the animals road tested on today's show, make sure you visit Adrian's Reptile World on the web at reptiles.com.au, where you'll find lots of useful tips and information on the upkeep and well-being of your pet.